But adaptive ones could survive. It destroyed their entire strategy. Didn't think of that when I was jury-rigging it together, Sarah admitted. I just wanted to get you safely to those who needed help. That's exactly why it worked. Zelx's tendrils moved in a pattern that indicated deep respect. You weren't trying to create a perfect solution. You were just trying to help, using whatever tools you had available. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion from the student work area. A human engineer and an Anaxi technician had apparently decided to combine a standard earth welding torch with Anaxi crystalline energy focusing. The result was enthusiastic. Should we stop them? Zelx asked as multicolored sparks filled the air. Sarah watched the students scrambling to contain and modify their creation, already arguing about potential applications. Nope. They're learning. Sometimes you have to let things explode a little to figure out how they work. Is that an official Earth teaching philosophy? It is now. Sarah grinned and picked up her toolkit. Come on, let's go see what impossible thing they've created. As they walked toward the excited students, Sarah reflected on the changes 6 months had brought. The repair station had become more than just a facility. It was a symbol of what could happen when different species learned from each other instead of just trading technology. The aristocratic Anaxi were learning to embrace chaos and improvisation, while humans were discovering the beauty of precision and elegance. Together, they were creating something entirely new, solutions that were both beautiful and adaptable, precise and creative. Above the station, the auroras painted the sky in sheets of flowing color. Earth ships and Anaxi vessels moved through the lights, their different designs complementing each other against the star-filled backdrop. Below, in a hangar bay that smelled of ozone and possibility, the future of two species was being forged in the fires of shared innovation. Sarah reached the student project just as something else exploded spectacularly. She laughed, already reaching for her tools. All right, let's see what impossible thing you've created and how we can make it work even better. After all, she was Sarah Chen, director of the impossible, teacher of the improbable, and proud proof that sometimes the best solutions came from simply refusing to accept that something couldn't be done. The aurora lights danced overhead, bearing witness to another day of impossible achievements at Outpost 47, where human chaos and Anaxi precision had combined to create something greater than either could have managed alone. It wasn't perfect, but then again, that was entirely the point. Years. Might as well make it official. The Admiral studied Sarah for a long moment, then turned to the Anaxi delegation. We'll need to establish formal protocols, clear lines of authority. Actually, Sarah interrupted again. An idea forming. I have a better suggestion. She pulled out her ever-present toolkit and set it on the conference table. Let me show you something. From the kit, she retrieved the quantum resonance scanner she'd modified, the one that looked like a toy and occasionally threatened to explode. This is how humans and Anaxi should work together. Not with rigid protocols, but with understanding. Let me demonstrate. As Sarah began to explain her vision for the future, the auroras danced overhead, their colors reflecting off both the crystalline Anaxi ships and the sturdy human station below. A new era was beginning, born from the impossible combination of human chaos and alien precision. And somewhere in the Centauri colonies, a young medical courier named Zelx was smiling, their tendrils curling with satisfaction at a plan well executed. A new beginning. 6 months after the Anaxi fleet's arrival, Outpost 47 had become unrecognizable. Crystalline spires rose alongside sturdy human architecture, creating a striking blend of elegance and functionality. The repair station's landing pads now hosted everything from rugged Earth cargo haulers to delicate Anaxi courier ships, all watched over by the constant dance of the northern lights. Sarah Chen stood in her new office, which still smelled faintly of machine oil despite its upgraded status. She'd refused to give up her workbench, which now sat incongruously beside advanced Anaxi diagnostic equipment. Her old toolkit remained within easy reach, though it had acquired some interesting additions. Director Chen, the station's enhanced AI, announced, its voice now carrying subtle harmonics that marked its hybrid nature. The first class of exchange engineers is arriving. Sarah smoothed her coveralls, now bearing both Earth and Anaxi insignia, and smiled. Showtime. The main hangar bay had been transformed into a teaching space, with work areas specially designed to accommodate both human and Anaxi physiology. 20 students waited inside. 10 human engineers from various Earth agencies, and 10 young Anaxi technicians, their tendrils moving with barely contained excitement. "Welcome to the impossible class," Sarah announced, walking to the center of the room. She picked up what looked like a standard human wrench in one hand and an elegant Anaxi crystal tool in the other. These represent two different approaches to engineering, both valid, both powerful, and both incomplete on their own. She set both tools down on a workbench. The Anaxi pursue perfection. Humans embrace chaos. Today, we're going to learn why we need both. A young human engineer raised his hand. "Director, is it true you repaired an Anaxi quantum drive with modified human tech?" Actually, a familiar voice called from the doorway. She did more than repair it. She revolutionized it. Sarah's face lit up as Zilks entered the hangar, their scales now shimmering with the deeper blues of maturity. The young courier had been promoted after delivering the plague evidence, and now served as a liaison between the High Council and the joint facility. "Courier Zilks." Sarah nodded formally, then broke into a grin. "Or should I say head of interspecies medical transport. The promotion was largely thanks to you." Zilks's tendrils moved in amusement. "The hybrid drive system you created. We've adapted it for our entire medical fleet. Turns out having ships that can adapt to unexpected problems is rather useful in emergency situations." Sarah turned back to her students. "That's lesson 1. The best solutions often come from combining different approaches, not insisting that one way is always right." She pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared, showing the schematics of her hybrid drive system. This shouldn't work. According to every textbook, every expert, every known law of physics, this combination of technologies should be impossible. But it does work, because sometimes the impossible just means we haven't been creative enough. The next few hours passed in a blur of technical discussions, practical demonstrations, and more than a few controlled explosions. Sarah watched with pride as human and Anaxi students began working together, each bringing their unique perspectives to shared problems. During a break, Zilks approached her workbench, where she was tinkering with yet another impossible modification. "The plague conspirators were captured," they said quietly, "thanks to the evidence we delivered. But more importantly, thanks to how we delivered it." Sarah looked up from her work. "Oh, your hybrid drive system didn't just get the medical supplies through. It proved that their weapon had a weakness, that perfect systems could be defeated." Responded. She created a functional hybrid of human and Anaxi technology in hours, using what we would consider primitive tools. More importantly, she did it not for profit or glory, but to save lives. Sarah fought the urge to fidget as all eyes turned to her. She focused instead on the datapad in her hands, reviewing the Anaxi proposal. The technical specifications made her engineer's heart race. "There's more," she said suddenly, looking up from the pad. "This isn't just about technology exchange, is it?" Nilith's tendrils curved in approval. "Perceptive. The quantum matrix virus that nearly killed young Zilks revealed a critical vulnerability in our systems, a vulnerability that stems from the very perfection we pride ourselves on." "Your technology is too perfect," Sarah nodded, understanding dawning. "Too elegant, too predictable in its patterns. That's why the virus works so well. It used your system's precision against them. While your crude but effective solution worked precisely because it was unpredictable," Tylith added. "Human engineering is." The elder paused, tendrils writhing as they searched for the right word. "Chaotic. You embrace imperfection, find ways to make flaws work for you instead of seeking to eliminate them entirely." Admiral Zhang's eyes narrowed. You want to learn our imperfection. We want to learn your adaptability, Nilith corrected. For millennia, the Anaxi have pursued technological perfection. We created works of engineering so precise they border on art. And now, that very perfection has become our weakness. Sarah stood, drawing surprised looks from both human and Anaxi representatives. She walked to the dome's window, gesturing at the crystalline fleet hanging in the aurora-painted sky. Look at those ships, she said softly. They're beautiful. Perfect. Every system optimized, every calculation precise to 100 decimal places, but throw something unexpected at them. Something messy and human and imperfect. And they don't know how to adapt. She turned back to the gathered diplomats. That's why you need this facility. Not just to share technology, but to learn how humans approach problems. Our willingness to jury-rig solutions, to try things that shouldn't work but somehow do. Yes, Nilith's tendrils moved in what Sarah now recognized as excitement. Imagine combining Anaxi precision with human creativity. Ships that are both elegant and adaptable. Systems that can respond to the unexpected not with rigid protocols, but with innovative solutions. And in exchange, Admiral Zhang asked. In exchange, humanity gets access to Anaxi technology far beyond your current level. Not freely. You'll have to learn to understand it, to work with it properly. But with Sarah Chen and this facility as a bridge between our approaches. Sarah looked at Walsh, who had been unusually quiet throughout the exchange. The station would need significant upgrades, already planned for. Nilith gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed Outpost 47 transformed, expanded and enhanced with a blend of human and Anaxi architecture. We will provide the necessary modifications while maintaining the station's current human crew and operations. And me? Sarah asked. What exactly would my role be? You would serve as a bridge, Tylith explained, teaching our engineers to think more humanly while helping your people understand our technology. Your solution to the quantum matrix virus proved you can do both. Admiral Zhang stood, his formal uniform creaking slightly. This is an enormous decision. We'll need time to consult with our governments, to review the implications. With respect, Admiral, Sarah interrupted, surprising herself as much as everyone else. We don't have that kind of time. The people who created that virus, who engineered a plague to stop colonial expansion, they're still out there. And now they know their weapon can be countered by human engineering. Nilith's tendrils moved in agreement. They will adapt. Next time, they will target human systems as well as Anaxi ones. We must be ready. The dome fell silent as the implications sank in. Sarah looked out at the fleet again, its crystalline surfaces reflecting the dancing auroras. Then she looked at her own reflection in the dome's window. Grease-stained coveralls, messy hair, and all. I'll do it, she said firmly. Assuming Earth agrees, I'll take the position. Chen, Walsh spoke for the first time, his voice rough. You understand what you're signing up for. The responsibilities, the diplomatic implications. Greg, Sarah turned to her former boss with a slight smile. When have I ever let protocol stop me from doing what needs to be done? To everyone's surprise, Walsh laughed. Fair point. He looked at Admiral Zhang. For what it's worth, sir, if anyone can make this work, it's Chen. She's been violating protocols to achieve the impossible for 15. They were proving it was engineered. Someone tried to stop that proof from reaching the Centauri colonies. Walsh's face paled. And now the High Council itself is coming to Earth. Why not send investigators to the colonies? Because the sabotage happened here, Sarah realized. In human space, they're not coming to investigate the plague. They're coming to investigate us. The dome's windows automatically polarized as the first ships appeared in visual range. They were beautiful in a way that made Sarah's engineer heart ache. Massive crystalline structures that seemed to flow through space itself, more like living creatures than vessels. The quantum drive signatures were unlike anything she'd seen. even in theoretical texts. Incoming transmission, the AI announced. Anaxi High Council requesting direct communication. Walsh reached for the comm controls, but Sarah caught his arm. Wait, they're not calling the station. She pointed to a specific signal pattern. That's a personal comm code. They're calling me. Before Walsh could object, she accepted the transmission. The dome's main display flickered, and Sarah found herself looking at an Anaxi elder. Their scales were deep purple with age, and their tendrils moved with deliberate grace. 4 sets of eyes studied her with unsettling intensity. Sarah Chen. The elder's voice carried the weight of centuries. I am first speaker Nelith of the Anaxi High Council. Young Zilks has told us a most interesting story. Sarah straightened. Speaker, I take full responsibility for modifying Anaxi technology without authorization. My superiors had no knowledge of my actions. Responsibility. Nilith's tendrils curved in what might have been amusement. Engineer Chen, do you know what you did? I jury-rigged a solution that probably violated 17 different patents and at least one fundamental law of physics, Sarah admitted. But it worked. It more than worked. Another elder moved into view. You created a hybrid drive system that was immune to quantum matrix corruption. Do you understand what that means? Sarah frowned. It was just a temporary fix. Crude, inefficient, and completely impossible according to every xenotech expert we consulted. Nilith interrupted. Yet you did it in less than 6 hours, with primitive tools, while under pressure. More importantly, you did it to save lives, knowing it would cost you your career. The elder's tendrils moved in a pattern Sarah had never seen before. The plague perpetrators counted on quantum matrix viruses being impossible to counter. Your impossible solution helped Zilks deliver proof of their crimes. The Centauri colonies will have justice, thanks to human ingenuity. Sarah felt Walsh stiffen beside her as the implications sank in. She'd helped prevent a cover-up of engineered mass murder, and the Anaxi High Council itself had come to Earth because of it. That's good, she managed. But with all due respect, Speaker, you didn't bring 50 ships just to say thank you. No, Nilith agreed. We came to offer you a job. The dome fell silent except for the faint hum of quantum drives from the assembled fleet. Sarah stared at the display, certain she'd misheard. A job. The saboteurs proved that our technology has vulnerabilities we never considered, Nilith said. We need someone who thinks differently, someone who can see solutions where we see only elegant impossibilities. The elder's tendrils curved again. We need you, Sarah Chen, and we're prepared to make Earth an offer they can't refuse to get you. Sarah looked at Walsh, who seemed to be having trouble breathing. She looked out at the fleet of impossible ships hanging in the aurora-painted sky. She looked down at her grease-stained hands, capable of miracles that violated physics textbooks. What kind of offer? She asked. Nilith's answer would change everything. The fleet arrives. The observation dome had become an impromptu diplomatic chamber. Representatives from Earth's major space agencies crowded one side, their formal uniforms a sharp contrast to Sarah's stained coveralls. On the other side, a delegation of Anaxi elders sat in graceful crystalline chairs they'd materialized from seemingly nowhere. The air hummed with tension and possibility. First Speaker Nilith's voice filled the dome. We propose establishing Earth's first joint human Anaxi research and repair facility, here at what you call Outpost 47. The elders' tendrils moved in precise patterns as they spoke. In exchange for hosting this facility and allowing Sarah Chen to serve as its director, the Anaxi High Council will share select technological innovations with Earth. The human representatives shifted uncomfortably. Admiral Zhang of the Pan-Pacific Space Force leaned forward. With all respect, Speaker, why this specific location? Why this specific engineer? Because Sarah Chen did what our best minds claimed was impossible. Another elder, Speaker Tyleth, important in careers. Zilks paused at their ship's entrance. I won't forget this, Sarah Chen. My people don't forget debts. Their tendrils moved in a complex pattern. 3 days. Watch the skies in 3 days. Before Sarah could ask what that meant, Zelks was gone, sealing their ship's entrance. The hybrid systems hummed to life, and the ship rose smoothly into the aurora-lit sky. Within moments, it was just another light among the stars. Sarah watched it disappear, then turned to face the approaching corporate transport. Her career was probably over, but she couldn't bring herself to regret her choices. She'd helped save lives, prevented criminals from getting away with mass murder, and gotten to work on advanced alien technology. All in all, not a bad way to get fired. As she walked to meet her fate, she found herself wondering about Zilks's cryptic parting words. Watch the skies in 3 days. What could an Anaxi medical courier possibly do in 3 days? She had a feeling she was going to find out. The warning. Sarah's small cabin sat on the edge of the repair station's residential zone, its windows offering a clear view of the endless Alaskan wilderness. 3 days after her termination, she sat at her cluttered workbench, surrounded by half-finished projects and the detritus of 15 years at Outpost 47. A partially disassembled quantum resonance scanner lay before her, its liquid metal core catching the morning light. The termination hearing had been mercifully brief. Corporate didn't appreciate unauthorized alien contact, unauthorized repairs, or unauthorized anything else. The fact that she'd modified standard equipment to interface with advanced alien technology had particularly offended the compliance team. Her credentials were revoked, her security clearance canceled, and she had 48 hours to vacate station housing. The only reason she wasn't in custody was that no one could prove exactly what she'd done to the Anaxi ship. Her hybrid systems weren't in any repair manual or protocol guide, and the corporate investigators couldn't understand her modifications well enough to file charges. A sharp beeping interrupted her brooding. Sarah glanced at her modified scanner, frowning at the unusual readings. Something was disturbing the quantum field in high orbit. Something big. Her comm unit crackled to life. Chen. Station Manager Walsh's voice was tight with strain. Get to the observation dome. Now. I'm terminated, remember? Sarah replied, though she was already grabbing her coat. No station access. Now, Chen. That's an order. Sarah laughed. You can't order me around anymore, Greg. I'm just a civilian now, remember? A pause. Then, quieter. Please, Sarah. We need you. That got her attention. In 15 years, she'd never heard Walsh say please to anyone. She was running before he finished speaking. The observation dome was chaos when she arrived. Every screen showed the same thing. Massive disturbances in Earth's orbital space, quantum signatures unlike anything in human records. The station eye was cycling through alert protocols so fast its voice had developed a stutter. What am I looking at? Sarah asked, stepping up to the main display. Walsh pointed to a series of energy readings. It started 3 hours ago. Quantum disturbances in high orbit, getting stronger by the minute. We thought it was a sensor malfunction until every station in the network reported the same thing. Then, 10 minutes ago, we got this. He keyed a command, and a message scrolled across the screen in elegant Anaxi script. Sarah's eyes widened as she read the translation. ATT Nintion Earth Authorities. NNXI High Cowan CL Fleet 8P Puro Ching. Maintain orbital positions. This is not a hostile action. Repeat. This is not a hostile action. High Council Fleet, Sarah whispered. That's impossible. The Anaxi High Council never leaves their home system. They haven't traveled en masse in over 1,000 years. Tell them that. Walsh gestured at the readings. Because we're tracking at least 50 ships, all bigger than anything we've ever seen them use for trade. They'll be in visual range in. He checked the display. 17 minutes. Sarah's mind raced. Zalks's parting words echoed in her memory. Watch the skies in 3 days. What had the courier done? Clear the dome, she said suddenly. Walsh blinked. What? Clear the dome. Get everyone out except you and me. When he hesitated, she added, "Trust me, Greg. Please. One last time." Maybe it was the please, or maybe he just recognized the look in her eyes. The same one she got before pulling off an impossible repair. Walsh nodded slowly. "Everyone out," he ordered. "Maintain monitoring from secondary stations." He waited until the dome was empty before turning back to Sarah. "All right, Chen. Talk." "The medical supplies Zilx was carrying," she said, watching the quantum disturbance readings grow stronger. "They weren't just treating a plague. Quantum matrix. Every time the drive engages, it corrupts itself a little more. You'd have never made it to the Centauri colonies." She felt a cold anger building as she traced the sophistication of the sabotage. Someone had wanted this young courier to fail, had been willing to risk their life to prevent medical supplies from reaching their destination. The question was why. "The plague outbreak," Sarah said slowly, pieces clicking together in her mind. "It's not natural, is it?" Zilx's tendrils drooped. "No," they whispered. "We believe it was engineered by a faction opposing expansion into the Centauri sector. The medical supplies aren't just treatment. They contain the proof of artificial origin. If I don't deliver them, then thousands die, and the perpetrators get away clean." Sarah's jaw set in determination. "Not happening. Not on my watch." She turned back to the ship, mind racing through possibilities. The quantum matrix virus was beyond her ability to safely remove. That would take specialized Anaxi equipment. But maybe she didn't need to remove it. Maybe she just needed to think like a human. "Your people's technology is amazing," she said, running her hand along the crystalline circuits. "Elegant. Perfect. Maybe too perfect." Zilx tilted their head. "I don't understand. Human technology is messy. We jury-rig solutions, create workarounds, sometimes hold things together with the engineering equivalent of duct tape and hope. It's not elegant, but it's adaptable." Sarah grinned suddenly. "And viruses can't corrupt what isn't there to corrupt." She dove into her toolkit, pulling out an assortment of equipment that made Zilx's tendrils curl in alarm. Some of it was standard repair gear, some was modified beyond recognition, and some looked suspiciously homemade. "What are you doing?" Zilx asked, watching as Sarah began bypassing entire sections of the ship's crystalline circuitry. "Creating a human solution. We can't fix your quantum matrix in time, so we're going to bypass it entirely. Replace it with something simpler, cruder, but functional." Sarah's hands moved with practiced precision. "It won't be pretty, but it'll get you to the Centauri colonies." "That's impossible," Zilx protested. "The quantum matrix handles thousands of critical calculations per second. You can't just replace it with. Watch me," Sarah said cheerfully, splicing a mess of modified human tech into the elegant Anaxi systems. "Human computers might be primitive by your standards, but they're really good at doing one thing really fast. We don't need the full functionality of a quantum matrix. We just need enough to keep the gravitic drive stable." Hours passed in a blur of technical improvisation. Sarah worked with the focused intensity that had made her both the best engineer in the network and a constant headache for management. Zilx watched in fascination as their ship's systems were transformed into something that would probably give Anaxi engineers nightmares. "It's ugly," Sarah admitted finally, closing the last access panel. "But it'll work. The virus can't corrupt the quantum matrix if we're not using one. I've replaced it with a hybrid system, part human computing, part Anaxi crystals, all held together with mathematical duct tape and optimism." She stepped back, wiping grease from her hands. "Want to fire it up?" Zilx approached their ship's control interface hesitantly. The familiar crystalline controls now had sections that glowed with crude human electronics, creating an odd patchwork effect. They placed their hands on the activation panel. The ship hummed to life. The sound was different, rougher, less musical than the usual Anaxi harmony, but undeniably strong. Status displays flickered between alien script and human numerals as the hybrid systems synchronized. This is. Zylx's tendrils waved in amazement. The efficiency is only 60% of normal, but it's stable. Actually stable. They turned all four arms outward in what Sarah had learned was a gesture of profound respect. You did the impossible. Nah. Sarah grinned, packing up her tools. Just did the improbable with style. The real impossible part will be explaining this to corporate when they arrive in. She checked her watch and winced. About 20 minutes. As if on cue, the station AI announced, "Priority transport incoming. Corporate representatives and Xenotechnology compliance team approaching." Sarah straightened her oil-stained coveralls in a futile attempt to look presentable. "Right. Zylx, you need to leave now. Get those supplies to the colonies. I'll handle a fallout here." "But you'll lose your job," Zylx protested. "Your career." "I can stay." "Explain." "No time. Lives are counting on those supplies, and we've already proven someone's willing to sabotage you to prevent delivery." Sarah began guiding them toward their ship. "Besides, I knew what I was choosing when I decided to help. Some things are more. They weren't consistent with simple drive failure. Zylx was your ship sabotage. The alien's tendrils went rigid. How did you? The gravitic drive damage is focused around the power distribution nodes. Natural failures spread out from a single point. This looks like someone knew exactly where to hit to cause a cascade failure." Sarah's voice hardened. "Someone who didn't want those medical supplies delivered." Before Zylx could respond, the bay doors slammed open again. Station Manager Gregory Walsh stormed out, followed by 2 security officers. His face was already an impressive shade of red. "Chen, what the hell do you think you're doing? This is a restricted facility. We don't have clearance for alien vessels, much less." "Saving a life," Sarah interrupted, stepping between Walsh and her patient, "and preventing an interstellar diplomatic incident. This is an Anaxi medical courier carrying vital supplies to plague-stricken colonies. Would you prefer I let them crash?" Walsh's face went from red to purple. "You will step away from that ship immediately. Security will escort the alien to containment while we await proper authorities." "That's an order, Chen." Sarah looked down at Zylx, who was watching the exchange with growing distress, their tendrils writhing anxiously. She thought about the sabotaged ship, the plague victims waiting for supplies, and the young courier who trusted their life to human help. She thought about protocols and rules, and doing what was right. "No," she said simply, turning back to Zylx's ship. "I don't think I will. Chen, if you touch that ship, you're fired. Immediately. No appeals, no references, nothing. 20 years of experience, gone." Sarah pulled out her diagnostic scanner, already mapping repair approaches in her mind. "Noted, sir. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." As she walked past Zylx, the young alien reached out and caught her hand with one of their 4 arms. "Why?" they asked softly. "Why help when it will cost you so much?" Sarah smiled, giving the scaled hand a gentle squeeze. "Because it's the right thing to do. And because someone tried to stop these medical supplies from reaching people who need them. That makes it personal." She winked. "Besides, I've always wanted to work on Anaxi tech. The crystalline circuits are fascinating." Behind her, Walsh was shouting into his comm unit, probably calling corporate headquarters. Sarah ignored him, focused on the complex dance of light and energy flowing through the ship's damaged systems. She had maybe 6 hours before corporate representatives arrived. 6 hours to repair a sabotaged alien vessel, save a young courier's career, and ensure vital medical supplies reached their destination. She grinned, pulling out her tools. Just another day at Outpost 47. The auroras shimmered overhead, casting their multicolored light over the unlikely scene. A human engineer and an alien youth working together against time and protocol, while the vast Alaskan wilderness kept its ancient watch under the star-filled sky. Trust and technology. The crystalline circuits of the Anaxi ship pulsed with a sickly purple light as Sarah traced the damage pathways. Her diagnostic tools, Mostly modified versions of standard equipment she tinkered with over the years, projected holographic overlays of the ship's systems. The sabotage was even more elegant than she'd initially feared. They didn't just damage the gravitic drive, Sarah muttered, her fingers dancing over a particularly complex node cluster. They created a recursive feedback loop in the quantum matrix. Every time the system tries to compensate, it makes the problem worse. Zelks hovered nearby, all four arms clutching a steaming cup of what the station's synthesizer claimed was the Anaxi equivalent of hot chocolate. Their color had improved from alarming pale violet to a healthier deep blue, but their tendrils still writhed with anxiety. The ship's diagnostic systems didn't detect any malfunction. They said, multifaceted eyes reflecting the dancing lights of Sarah's tools. How did you know? Sarah smiled grimly. Human intuition. Well, that and 15 years of fixing things people swore couldn't be fixed. She reached into her toolkit and pulled out what looked like a child's toy. A clear cube filled with swirling metallic liquid, plus some questionably modified equipment. Is that a quantum resonance scanner? Zylx leaned closer, tendrils extending in fascination. But it's so small. Anaxi scanners are at least room-sized. Room-sized and extremely precise, Sarah agreed. Activating the cube, the liquid metal inside formed complex geometric patterns. This version trades some precision for portability, and it only explodes occasionally. Zylx's tendrils went rigid. Explodes. That was a joke. Mostly. Sarah studied the patterns forming in the cube. See these interference patterns? Someone programmed a virus into your ships. The unexpected landing. The Alaskan wilderness stretched endlessly beneath the aurora-lit sky, its vast emptiness broken only by the solitary glow of Outpost 47. Sarah Chen stood in the station's observation dome, her breath fogging the reinforced glass as she watched the northern lights dance across the star-filled horizon. The repair station's warning beacons pulsed their steady red rhythm into the night, a lonely lighthouse in a sea of snow and darkness. Chen, your shift ended 2 hours ago, the station's AI announced, its voice echoing through the empty dome. Station protocol requires adequate maintenance coverage at all times. Sarah finished, her dark eyes never leaving the sky. And we both know Murphy's working night shift with a hangover again. She absently adjusted the sleeve of her oil-stained coveralls, the patch reading senior engineer barely visible beneath years of mechanical grime. The AI's pause felt almost judgmental. Your observation is noted. Sarah smiled, running a hand through her short black hair. At 32, she was the youngest senior engineer in the Pan-Pacific Repair Network and probably the most reprimanded. Her personnel file was thick with citations for unconventional methodology and disregard for standard procedures. It was also thick with successful repairs that other engineers had deemed impossible. The night sky suddenly flared with an impossible burst of purple light. Sarah straightened, pressing closer to the glass as her trained eye caught what others might miss, the distinctive ripple of a failing gravitic drive. Station I. We've got an incoming vessel. Bearing. She squinted, calculating trajectories in her head. 047 Mark 223. Descent angle too steep for controlled landing. Scanning. The AI responded. All business now. Unknown configuration. Design matches no known Earth vessel. Attempting communication. No response on standard frequencies. Sarah was already moving, grabbing her toolkit as she ran for the maintenance bay. Plot probable landing zone and prep bay 3 for emergency recovery. And don't. Alert station management. Protocol requires we save lives first. Sarah cut in, punching the bay door controls. Management can yell at me later. The vast maintenance bay doors groaned open, letting in a blast of Arctic air that cut through her coveralls like knives. Sarah barely noticed, her attention fixed on the rapidly descending light in the sky. As it got closer, She could make out an elegant ship design unlike anything she'd seen before, all sweeping curves and iridescent metal that seemed to shift colors in the aurora's light. The ship's landing was less elegant. It carved a 100-meter trench through the permafrost before skidding to a stop at the edge of the landing pad, its hull smoking in the frozen air. Sarah approached cautiously, her toolkit ready and her mind already cataloging the visible damage patterns. Life signs detected, the AI announced in her earpiece. Single occupant. Atmosphere reading within Class D tolerance range. The ship's external hull was covered in what looked like crystalline circuitry, now cracked and sparking in several places. Sarah recognized the technology type from her theoretical xenotech studies. Anaxi engineering, supposedly some of the most advanced in known space. What was an Anaxi ship doing this far from the established trade routes? A section of the hull suddenly shifted, flowing like liquid metal to form an exit ramp. Sarah took a step back, her breath catching as a figure emerged from the ship's interior. The alien was smaller than she expected, barely reaching her shoulder. Its body was covered in what looked like iridescent scales, shifting from deep blue to violet as it moved. 4 arms emerged from a torso that tapered to a surprisingly delicate waist, and its head was crowned with sensory tendrils that wavered like underwater plants. It was also, Sarah realized with a start, just a kid. The young alien swayed unsteadily on the ramp, its large, multifaceted eyes blinking rapidly in the harsh floodlights. "Please," it said, the universal translator giving its words a slight musical lilt. "My ship, the medical supplies. I have to." Sarah lunged forward just as the alien's legs gave out, catching them before they could hit the metal ramp. The alien's scales were warm to the touch despite the freezing air, and she could feel a rapid triple heartbeat through her gloves. "I've got you," she said softly, helping them sit on the ramp. "I'm Sarah Chen, senior engineer. Let's worry about your ship after we make sure you're okay." Zilks, the alien managed, their sensory tendrils curling weakly. Third-class medical courier. The supplies. Plague outbreak in the Centauri colonies. Have to deliver. Medical courier. Sarah's eyes widened as she looked back at the ship with new understanding. The damage patterns she'd noticed,